Hello, my name is Mandy, and we're going to sketch. I found this old sketchbook that I never finished, and so I'm just showing you a little bit of what was in it. The first was an onion that I remember doing from still life, and then my pencil, also real life. This was done from my beach chair, and it never got finished. I don't really know what this was or what I was starting. This is actually from an Emily Olson watercolor mastery prompt. And then you could tell I was testing out a new scrubber brush. This also is Emily Olson, who I would highly recommend if you're a beginner and you want a lesson, like true lessons. Emily's wonderful. The dog was so cute that I had to do a black cat, of course. Those were dated in 2023. And then I found it, and so I did that poppy yesterday. And then that strawberry, that was just like a 10-minute draw and paint challenge, and basically failed colossally. I may go in and do my thing with it on my own, and that way at least looks cute in a sketchbook. I don't know. Sometimes we have to let go of just being too precious in sketchbooks, because that's what sketchbooks are for, is to do little exercises, to mess up, to explore, and they're not meant to be pristine. I think social media has tricked us all into thinking we have to have perfection, and sketchbooks are not meant to be perfection. I've started the drawing here. I'm doing some prompts from Tina's Diary on Instagram. She is a gouache artist, and her stuff is amazing. I have never used gouache, and I think that would be a fun new challenge maybe in the future. But she wanted to do some prompts to sketch every day in April. And so her first one was bloom. And when I think of spring, I think of the blooms that aren't quite open and everything is still just waking up. I think this is actually a magnolia. Someone who may know more about gardening can correct me if I'm wrong, that I think this is a magnolia. So here I've wet the paper and I'm dropping in color. I started with indigo, like a Holbein indigo, and then I started just pulling from kind of my dirty palette. And you'll notice I try here in a minute to do like some bokeh effect, which isn't that successful. And I'll tell you why. Because I think there was phthalo blue in that palette, on that dirty palette. And phthalo is extremely staining. And so if you're going to try to get that effect, you're not going to be able to get it very white or clear because it stains. So you'll see me messing with this for a bit. One of my downfalls is that I don't know why I do it. I cannot leave well enough alone sometimes, and I just mess and mess and mess in my paints. And a lot of times you just need to get out of it. As it's wet and it gets drier, you need to stop, because then that's when you introduce blooms and all kinds of other disasters. But yeah, I'm a person who does a lot of things they probably shouldn't in watercolor. I won't pretend to be the watercolor expert, but I do enjoy experimentation, and I know some. It's just, I just like to play and see what I can do. I was going to leave that white on that side and decided that was just too stark, so I dropped in just the slightest whisper of color there in that lower left-hand corner. It was just too white. While I'm playing around in this background some more, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about myself. Since this is the first YouTube video, my name is Mandy. I have an art background, but didn't really use it at all for my profession, and kind of didn't use it even as a hobby. I didn't really do a whole lot of artwork. I just got sidetracked with life and raising my son and working. And then 2020 came and COVID happened, and I thought I needed something. So I picked up watercolor, and I have been addicted to it ever since. I never did watercolor much before that, even with my art background. I was more into photography, and then I took some oil painting classes in college, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to pick that up just because I felt like it was kind of messy, and then you have the kind of the toxic smells, and here I was with a small child at home, and I felt like watercolor could be the least toxic and easiest to clean up and probably easiest to contain. So that's kind of why I did the watercolor. You'll see here I'm just putting in some color for the stem, or I guess, is it a branch or is it a stem? I guess it's kind of a little bit of both. But I'm using a transparent brown, and I'm using Holbein leaf green and Gamboge Nova. The Gamboge is my most favorite yellow, and I will use every excuse to pick that color back up. So I'm starting on the petals here. I think that's Quinn Red, I believe, that I started with, and you'll see that I put in some purple too. I think it's like mineral violet that I pick up from Holbein. So you can tell, you can just work separately on the leaves and allow drying time. Just try to separate them. That way you're not having the water run. Yep, so still working on those leaves, and I'll be honest, when we get to it, I'll just show you. These leaves do not turn out exactly the way that I wanted. I would have left more white space. Now, this is a pretty small sketchbook, and so I think leaving white space can be difficult, and if I did this in a bigger format, then probably I would have been more likely to be able to leave that white space easier. I could certainly have taken some white gouache, but I'm not a fan of putting gouache onto paper on top of my watercolor. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't like to do it. But it's a great way to fix errors if that's what you would want to do. But I just don't see any reason to fix things in my sketchbook. Like I said earlier, this is time to play and time to just enjoy. So again, sorry about my allergies. And you will have to forgive me on any tech stuff, because I don't know anything about tech. So even just making this video is such a learning curve for me. I'm currently talking over this video in iMovie, and I don't know, it just seems so strange, and who knows how this will turn out. But my editing skills, and then I got, jumping from subject to subject, I got this new ring light with a camera mount, a phone mount, really cheap, because I did not know if this was something that I wanted to do all the time. I just wanted to dabble in it. I didn't want to invest a huge amount of money and make like one YouTube video and stop. But it shakes a little bit, especially like when I'm really like scrubbing the paper, doing anything remotely aggressive. I can tell my camera's shaking, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to remedy that, and I'm not sure how I'm going to yet, because I'm still not ready to invest anything too differently. Maybe I can put a small table up. Oh, here I am with my heat tool, just making sure that's dry. Rule of thumb is, if it still feels cool, like if it feels kind of cool to the touch, it may still be damp. But yeah, that's just a heat tool that I was using so I could go in right here with the details. And this is when you can get a little bit fussy. Working on like the knots in the wood and the texture of the wood. And as I've mentioned, I can fuss all day long. Like, I love detail, and I could just sit and fuss and fuss. And I tend to like more realistic paintings, at least when I'm doing them. And so I guess that is why I could be so fussy. Here's the time to correct lines or anything. Like if you think something looks too skinny, fix it. Like you're at that stage now where you are being fussy and you're putting in details, and so now's the time to put anything you want to change in there. Like I mentioned before, this is an Etcher sketchbook. It is my favorite sketchbook that I've used so far. The paper is I love the tooth. It's 100% cotton. It functions like really good watercolor paper. So yes, I love the Etcher sketchbooks. And then the paintbrushes I'm using here are Princeton. I think they're the Aqua Elite. But I love Princeton synthetics. They come to the best point, and they seem like workhorses. I'm not the best at like taking care of my brushes like I should, and so I just think they seem to tolerate so much, and easily just a little bit of water, a little bit of hot water, reshape those bristles. Just seems like they go and go and go. And then as far as other equipment, I will show my palette maybe next time. I have a really large porcelain palette that I use when I'm sketching. I love that I can just pick up different colors on the fly. Now, if I'm doing something a little bigger, a little more formal and thought out, a lot of times I won't use that large palette. I will actually kind of plan it out, pick out my colors, and put those out on a smaller porcelain palette and stick with that. Because sometimes having the big palette, I cannot control myself and I pull too much paint for something, that's supposed to be more thought out. Here I am again just doing some last touches, putting a few darks in. That's another thing. With watercolor you go light to dark, and what I find for a lot of people in watercolor, when they feel like they just don't feel like it's done or they don't love it, all they need is to put a few darks in there. The darks are what make it pop. Here comes the tape peel. Thank you for watching.